a scandal in Bohemia. To Sherlock Holmes, she is always the woman. I have seldom heard him mention her under any other's name. In his eyes, she eclipses and predominates the whole of her sex. It was not that he felt any emotion akin to love for Irene Adler. All emotions at that one particularly.
Bohemia. I. To Sherlock Holmes, she is always a woman. I have seldom heard him mention her under any other name. In his eyes, she eclipses and predominates the whole of her sex. It was not that he felt any emotion akin to love for Irene Adler.
It was not that he felt any emotions akin to love for Irene Adler. All emotions, and that one particularly, were abhorrent to his cold, precise but admirable balanced mind. He was, I take it, the most perfect reasoning and observing machine that the world has seen. But as a lover, he would have placed himself in a false position. He never spoke of the softer patience, said with a gift and a sneer.
To Sherlock Holmes, she is always To Sherlock Holmes, she is always the woman. I have seldom heard him mention her under any other name. In his eyes, she eclipses and predominates the whole of her sex. It was not that he felt any emotion akin to love for Irene Adler. All emotions, and that one particularly, were abhorrent to his cold, precise, but admirably balanced mind. He was, I take it, the most perfect reasoning and observing machine that the world has seen. But as a lover, he would have placed himself in a false position.
All emotions at that one particular were abhorrent to his cold, precise but admirable balanced mind. He was, I take it, the most perfect reasoning and observing machine that the world has seen. But as a lover, he would have balance. He would he would have placed himself in a false position. He never spoke of the softer passion, say with a gibe and sneer. They were admirable things for the observer, excellent for drawing the veil from men's motives and actions, but for the trained reason to admit such intrusions into his own delicate and finally adjusted temperament was to introduce a distracting factor which might throw a doubt upon all his mental results. Green in a sensitive instrument or a crack in one of his own high power lenses would not be more disturbing than a strong emotion in a nature such as his. and yet there was but one woman to him, and that woman was the late Irene Adler, of dubious and questionable memory.
Dubious.
I had seen littles I had seen little of Holmes lately. My memory has drifted
Drifted.
away from each other. My own complete happiness and the home-centered interest which rise up around the man who first finds himself master of his own establishments were sufficient to absorb all my attention, while Holmes, who loathed,
Loathed.
who loathed every form of society with his whole bohemian soul, remained,
Remained.
remained in our lodgings in Baker Street, buried
Buried.
among his old books and alternating from week to week between cocaine and ambition, the drowsiness of the drug, and the fierce energy of his own keen nature. He was still as ever deeply attracted by the study of crime, and occupied his immense faculties and extraordinary power of observation in following out those clues and clearing up those mysteries which has been abandoned as hopeless by the official police. From time to time, I heard some vague account of his doings, of his summons to Odessa in the case of the Trepov murder, of his clearing up of the singular tragedy of the Atkinson brothers and Trincomail, and finally of the mission which he had accomplished so delicately and successfully for the reigning family of Holland. Beyond the scene of this activity, however, which I merely share with all the readers of the daily press, I knew little of my former friend and companion. One night I was of the 20th of March 1988. I was returning from a journey to a patient for a high now return to civil practice. When my way led me through by Baker Street, as I passed the well-remembered door which must always be associated in my mind with my wine and with the dark incidents of the study in scarlet, I was seized with a keen desire to see Holmes again and to know how he was employing his extraordinary power. His rooms were brilliantly lit, and even as I looked up, I saw his tall, spare figure pass to eyes in a dark silhouette against the blink. He was passing the room swiftly, eagerly, with the head sunk upon his chest. and his hand clasped behind him to me. Who knew every mood and habit, his attitudes and manner told their own story. He once, at work again, he had rise out of his drought-created dream and was hot upon the scent of some new problem. I rang the bell and was shown up to the chamber which had formerly been in part my own. Hi, good morning, Tengri 44. Okay, I had seen little of home lately. My memories has
Drifted.
drifted off away from each other. My own complete happiness and the home-centered
Home centered.
interest which rise up around the man who first finds himself master of his own establishment. Hello, Tengri 44. I'm from Maine. And where are you from? Interest which rise up around the man who first finds himself master of his home establishment.
Establishment.
Were sufficient to absorb all my attentions, while homes who
Loathed.
loathes every form of society with his whole bohemian soul, remaining in our
Lodgings.
lodgings in Baker Street, buried,
Buried.
buried among his old books, and alternating from week to week between cocaine and ambition.
Cocaine.
The drawn sadness,
Drowsiness.
drowsiness of the drug, and the fierce
Fierce.
energy of his own keen nature.
Keen.
He was still, as ever, deeply attracted by the study of crime and occupied his immense faculties and extraordinary powers of observation in following out those clues
Clues.
and clearing up those mysteries which had been abandoned
Abandoned.
as hopeless by the official police. From time to time, I heard some vague account of his noise, of his summons of to Odessa in the case of the trip off.
Trepoff.
Murder, of his clearing up of the singular tragedy of the Atkinson brothers and Trincomalee.
Trincomalee.
Trincomalee, and finally of the mission which he had accomplished so delicately and useful for the reigning
Reigning.
family of Holland. Beyond the scenes of his activity, however, which I merely share with all the readers of the daily press, I knew little of my former friend and companion. One night I was on the 20th of March, 1888.
1888.
I was returning from a journey to a passion, for I had now returned to civil practice, when my way led me through Baker Street. As I paced, okay, as I paced the well-remembered door, which must always be associated in my mind with my
Wooing.
wooing, and with the dark incidents of the study in scarlet.
Scarlet.
I was saying with a keen desire to see Holmes again and to know how he was employing his extraordinary powers. His rooms were brilliant lit, and even I looked up. I saw his tall, spare figure pass twice in a dark silhouette
Silhouette.
against the blind. He was pacing the room swiftly,
Swiftly.
eagerly,
Eagerly.
with his head sunk upon his chest,
Chest.
and his hands clasped behind him.
Clasped.
To me, no, to me, who knew his every mood and habit,
Mood.
his attitude and manner told their own history. He was at war again. He had risen out of his drug created dreams and was hot upon the scent
Scent.
of some new problem. I rang the bell and was shown up to the chamber which had formerly
Formerly.
been in part my own. His manner
Manner.
was not effusive. It seldom was, but he was glad.
Glad.
I think to see me with hardly a word spoken, but with a kindly eye.
Kindly.
He wafted me to an armchair, threw across his case of cigars and indicate a spirit case, a gasoline in the corner,
Gasogene.
gasoline in the corner. Then he stopped before the fire and looked me over in his singular introspective fashion. Wedlock.
Wedlock.
Sweets.
Suits.
You. The remark, I think, Watson, that you have put of 7.5 pounds since I saw you. 7, I answered. Indeed. I should have thought a little more, just a trifle more, I fancy.
Fancy.
Watson, and I practice again. I observe. You did not tell me that you intend to go into harness.
Intended.
Then how do you know? I see it. I deduce it. How how do I know that you have been getting yourselves very wet lately, and that you have a most clumsy and careless servant girl? My dear Holmes said, this is the much you will certainly has been born. Had you lived a few centuries ago, it is true that I had a country walk on Thursday and came home in a dreadful mess.
Dreadful. Mess.
But as I have changed my clothes, I can imagine how you deduce it. As to Mary Jane, she is incorrigible.
Incorrigible.
Incorrigible, and my wife has given her notice. But there again I fail to see how you worried out the chocolate to him and rubbed his long nervous hands together. It is simplicity itself, said he. My eyes tell me that of the inside of your left shoe, just where the firelight strikes in the letter.
Leather.
The letter is scored by 6 almost parallel cuts. Obvious they has been caused by someone who has very carelessly
Carelessly.
scraped round the edge of the sole in order to remove crusted mud from it.
Crusted.
Hence,
Hence.
you see my double deduction that you had been out in vile weather and that you had a particularly
Malignant.
malignant but slitting,
Boot slitting.
but slitting specimen of the London slavey. As to your practice is a gentleman walks. Excuse me. A specimen of the London slavey. As to your practice in a gentleman walks into my room, smelling of iodoform,
Iodoform.
iodoform, with a black mark of nitrate of silver upon his right forefinger,
Forefinger.
and a
Bulge.
bulge of the right side of his stout hat, to show where he has secreted his stethoscope.
Stethoscope.
I must be dull indeed if I do not pronounce him to be an active member of the medical profession. I call not help logging at the ease with which he explained his process of deduction. When I hear you give your reasons, I remark that things always appears to me to be so ridiculously simple that I could easily do it myself. Thought of each successive instance of your reasoning, I am baffled until you explain your process, and yet I believe that my aids are as good as yours. Quite so, he answered, lighting a cigarette and throwing himself down into armchair. You see, but you don't observe. The distinction is clear. For example, you have frequently seen the steed which lead out from the hall of his room. Frequently.
Frequently.
Frequently. How often? Well, some hundreds of times. Then, how many are there? How many? I don't know. Quite so. You have not observed, and yet you have seen. That is just my point. Now, I know that there are 17 instead because I have both seen and observed. By the way, since you are interested in these little problems, and since you are good enough to chronicle one or two of my trifling experiences, you may be interested in this. He threw,
Through.
he threw over a sheet
Sheet.
of thick pink tinted no paper which had been lying open upon the table. It came by the last post, said he. Read it, it aloud.
Allowed.
Aloud. The note was undated and without either signature or address. There will call upon you tonight at a quarter to 8 o'clock. It say a gentleman who desires to consult you upon a matter of the very deepest moment. Your recent service to one of the royal house of Europe have shown
Shown.
that you are one of who may safely be trusted with matters which are
which,
of an importance which can hardly be exaggerated. This account of you we have from all quarters received. Be in your chamber, then at that hour, and do not take it amiss if your visitors wear a mask. This is indeed a mystery. I remark, what do you imagine that it means? I have no data yet. It is a capital mistake to theorize before one has data. Insensibly, one begins to twist facts to suit theories instead
instead,
of the theories to suit facts. But the note itself, what do you deduce from it? I carefully examined the rhythm,
examined,
examine the rhythm of the paper upon which it was written. The man who wrote it was presumably
presumably,
well to do, I remarked,
remarked,
endeavoring
endeavoring,
to imitate my companion's process. Such paper could not be
bought,
bought under half a crown a packet. Is peculiarly strong and stiff.
stiff,
Peculiar, that is the very word, said Holmes. It is not an English paper at all. Hold it up the light. I did so and saw a large E with a small g and P and a large G with a small t woven into the texture of the paper. What do you make of that? Asked Holmes. The name of the marker, no doubt, on his monogram rather. Not at all. The G with the small t stands for Gesellschaft.
Gesellschaft,
Gesellschaft, which is the German for company. It is a customary contraction like OCO
company,
or company. P of course stands for papier.
papier,
Papier. Now for the AG.
e.g.,
Let us glance at our continental gazetteer.
gazetteer,
Gazetteer. He took down a heavy brown volume from his
shelves,
shelves. It glowed.
aglow,
A glock, a glanish.
eglonits,
Here were area. It is a German-speaking country in Bohemia, not far from Karlsbad,
Carlsbad,
remarkable as being the scene of the death of Wallenstein and for its numerous glass factories and paper mills. Ha ha, my boy, what do you make of that? His eyes sparkled, and he sent out a great blue triumphant cloud from his cigarette. The paper was made in Bohemia, I say. Precisely, and the man who wrote the note is a German. Do you know the peculiar construction of the sentence? This account of you we have from all the quarters received. A Frenchman or Russian could not have written that. It is the German who is so uncourteous to his verse.
Uncourteous.
It only remains
Remains.
thereof to discover what is wanted by the German who writes upon Bohemian paper and prefers wearing a mask to showing his face. And here he comes, if I am not mistaken, to resolve all our doubts. And his bow there was the sharp
Sharp.
sound of horses' hoof and gratings well against the corp,
Curb.
followed by a sharp pull of the bell, horns
Whistled.
whistled. A pair by the sun, said he. Yes, he continued, gliding out of the window,
Glancing.
glancing out of the window. A nice little broad man,
Brougham.
broom, and a pair of beauties, 150 guineas apiece.
A piece.
There is money in this case, Watson. There is nothing else. I think that I had better go home. Not a bit, doctor. Stay where you are. I am lost without my Boswell.
Boswell.
And this promises to be interesting. It will be a pity to miss it.
Pity.
But your client,
Client.
but your client, never mind him. I may want your help, and so may he. Here he comes. Sit down in that armchair, doctor, and give off your best attention. A slow and heavy step, which had been heard upon the stairs and in the passage, paused immediately outside the door. Then there was a loud and authoritative tap. Come in, said Holmes. A man entered who could hardly have been less than 6 feet 6 inches
Inches.
in height,
Height.
with the chest and bliss of a Hercules. His dress was rich with a richness
Richness.
which would in England be looked upon as asking to bad tasted heavy bands of astrakhan.
Astrakhan.
Astrakhan were slashed across the sleeves and front of his double-breasted coat, while the deep blue cloak which was thrown over his shoulder was lined with flame-colored silk and secured at the neck with a brooch which consisted of a single flaming beryl bust with an extended halfway of his scales
Calves.
as his calls, and which were trimmed at the top with rich brow for complete impression of barbaric opulence, which was suggested by his whole appearance. He carried a broad-brimmed hat in his hand, while while he rode across the upper part of his face, standing down past the cheekbones, a black bizarre mask, which he had apparently adjusted the very moment, for his hand was still raised to it as he entered from his lower part of the face. He appeared to be a man of a strong character, with a thick, hanging lip and a long, straight chin suggestive of resolution pushed to the length of obstinacy. "You had my note?" he asked, with a deep, harsh voice and a strongly marked German accent. "I told you that I would call." He looked from one of the other off, as if uncertainly which to address. "Pray take a seat," said Holmes. "This is my friend and colleague, Dr. Watson, who is occasionally gotten known to help me in my cases. Whom have I the honor to address?" "You may address me as the Count von Kram, a Bohemian nobleman. I understand that the gentleman your friend is a man of honor and discretion, whom I may trust with a matter of the most extreme importance. Is not, I should much prefer to communicate with you alone." I rose to go, but Holmes caught me by the wrist and pushed me back into my chair. "It is both or none," sighed he. "You may say before his gentleman anything which you may say to me." The Count shrugged his broad shoulders. "Then I must begin," said he, "by blinding you both to absolute secrecy for 2 years. At the end of that time, the matter will be of no importance, and present is not too much to say that is such way